Hello, everyone. Welcome back to this week's episode of Mocktail Minutes. This is Bailey.
And this is Brianna.
This week I am drinking. What am I drinking? I don't know why it's so hard for me to remember sometimes. Oh, I put in it the lemon cure, and then I did the blueberry drink Wholesome, mixing
Oh,
brands. I don't
no.
do that with my clothes, but I will do it with my electrolytes.
I'm just doing the electrolyte powders plus still strawberry kiwi flavor. I like that you can get it on Amazon. And honestly, all the flavors I've tried so far have been so good. So
Yeah. I thought you were branching out on your flavors.
I know. I haven't finished it yet. But next time I'm gonna do something wild. And when I say
Okay.
something I don't ever do. No,
Orange.
yeah, maybe I'll do orange. I'm like, not grape. I draw the line at grape, but see one. Yeah.
Yes. Well, today we're going to do a short and sweet episode. Some of you may have seen the uprising of Kellogg's boycotts. Some of you may not. So we thought we would just tackle this today because we actually did mention food dyes in a recent episode and kind of our thoughts on it. And we felt like we needed to clarify some things.
Yeah. And so because I feel like we don't eat a ton of food dyes, but I maybe that's just because we're dietitians and we just, not to say whatever, but a lot of people do. It's in a lot of products. We're talking like, the red dye 40, yellow 5, blue, whatever the blue color is. But basically what everyone is demanding at this point that Kellogg's take out of their cereals, out of their, I think it's the Fruit Loops and Apple Jacks. I don't know about any other ones, but for sure
Yeah,
those
those are
ones.
yeah, those are like the main ones that keep being brought up, especially like the Fruit Loops. And I guess like the main dyes that we're looking at right now are the red dye number 40 and yellow dye number 5. So,
Yeah.
I mean, really it all started from what I understand. So, what's her name? Vanny Hari? Something like that. She's known as the Food Babe on
Yeah.
Instagram. But she had like wanted to meet with Kellogg's and kind of just like have a sit down meeting and straight to the point, they said no, apparently.
They said, and I mean, I don't know how they said no because they had already said they were going to remove it. Like,
Yes,
a
in like
lot.
2015,
Mhm.
like they were supposed to be removed. They said that in 2015, they were supposed to be removed by like 2018. Clearly, it didn't happen in the United States. So, like in other countries, the cereals were adjusted. So, like Fruit Loops, what's it in Canada?
Yeah.
Their
Yeah.
color is from blueberry juice, carrots, and like watermelon juice. Where
Mhm.
here, it's like through the dyes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it does look different. And I think that's also why when you make things at home, they don't always like look the exact same as if you were to
Yeah.
buy it
They're
because
not
you're
as
not.
vibrant. They're not as
Yeah.
like, and I think what it is like Kellogg's is really standing by the fact that like this makes our products look the best and they're deemed safe in the US. And so I think what a lot of these countries do, I mean, a lot of these companies do, and technically rightfully so, but then it's like, well, let's talk about the transparency and like, you know, of these companies. But they're saying like these food dyes are safe for consumption in the United States based off of, the FDA and all this. And so they're like, we don't want to change it. But they change it in other countries because other countries have noticed like these can lead to things like increased behavioral issues with children or things like that. And so other companies have either taken it out or made them make the switch, or they make them do like a front of package warning. So, like if you were to look at Fruit Loops in like Europe, for example, I think they still technically use red dye 40, but in a lower amount. But on the front of the package, it'll say, warning, this food contains this that can be linked to this. And it's more of a like helpful to consumers because when you read the boxes in America, it's like, oh, a good source of this and like good for healthy bones. And so parents are like, okay, cool. Like my kids will eat it. It's quick, it's cheap, it's great. And then you look at the packaging in other countries and there's just like that extra warning that kind of makes you be like, okay, do I want to give this to my kids? Or it gives you like a more informed decision.
Yes, and I think that's the most important part about all this. I mean, even let's take Cheerios, for example, they are marketed as being like heart healthy, lowering cholesterol, even though like some of them have a bunch of added sugars into it, but they're saying heart healthy and lowering cholesterol because they have soluble fiber. Part of
Yeah.
the job of soluble fiber is to help remove excess cholesterol.
Mhm.
So it's things like that that we are putting on the front of boxes and it draws us in And that's why I've made a post about it before where just look on the back of it. Just ignore what the front of the package is, look on the back.
Yeah.
And then, yes, the key is to be informed about what's going on, deciding what is best for your family, deciding like what's going to work for your budget, because that's also the hard part is a lot of these foods are more budget friendly. Like, let's just be honest, a lot of them are. And so it's also not fair that if you like don't make a certain amount of money, you can't opt for these healthier choices. But then there's also the argument of, okay, if we're debating between like cereal and eggs, you're gonna get way better ingredients from the eggs because you're just getting eggs and they're the same price. So,
Mhm.
it kind of goes both ways on deciding what do you want your life to look like? How do you want to feel? How do you want your house to run? And if like budget is something you work on, that's things that you can weigh out. Same thing like if you're debating on I don't know, like a cheese Danish versus some like breakfast sandwiches. I would go with the breakfast sandwich because at least you're getting some protein, even though if they're not the perfect ingredients, I would say that's the better option. So always kind of like weighing out your options there and kind of making the best decision for yourself. So the Food Babe, she did get like a petition started with over 400,000 signatures, and that's where they're kind of doing not boycotts, what's it called? Protests.
Protesting. Yeah. I was like, wait, I know the word.
But they are boycotting Kellogg products. But they're protesting. And then I saw too, like Kellogg's posted a sign like "Get off my lawn" or something like that. So it's
Yeah.
interesting to see their reactions toward this when they have said in the past that they were going to get rid of these dyes. And
Hmm.
then I guess another part of it too is removing BHT. BHT is basically it's like a synthetic antioxidant and it's used as a preservative in different food products. So that's another thing that people are trying to get removed. That way it's used so like your food can last longer, but it also changes in colors and it does affect the flavor a little bit in foods, I believe too. But it makes basically a lot of people are using it to extend the shelf life. So then their product lasts longer in your pantry. So that's another thing that people are trying to get away from. And then with the artificial dyes too, they actually can bind to proteins under certain conditions, which is why it is thought that they can contribute to like biological effects in the body. So then
Hmm.
really the interaction between artificial dyes and protein, it does depend on the chemical structure of the dye and specific properties of the protein. From what my understanding, that's why like the focus is more on the red 40 and the yellow number 5.
Yeah. And like basically the impact that it can have on, children, especially in developmental years, that sort of thing. And then, I mean, it's frustrating because major food companies like this, their first thing that they're going to go to is like, we make, like we make products that are available on a budget, but there's no reason why major food companies can't make more budget friendly options that have less things in them that parents are asking for. It's like
Mm-hmm.
they're a major company. And honestly, just how we are in the US is we are a free market. And so it's up to the consumer to know what you're buying, what the products, what products are, what harmful effects that they can have, et cetera. And it's not like that in other countries. And I think that's the major issue. And again,
That's true.
like I'm always talking about like, are your companies transparent, right? Because there shouldn't be companies that are saying, we're going to take it out and then don't, or we're going to change things in other countries, which obviously we can, and then they don't do it here when it's requested. Or, I mean, Coca-Cola does the same thing. Like people are like
Mhm.
amazed to know that like in a lot of the Latin America countries, there's a front on package label warning of Coca-Cola of like, this has this much added sugar. And in some countries, Coca-Cola has to put less sugar in their soda
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
the countries have demanded it. But like here, I don't know why. It's just because of how we're set up, which is kind of crazy.
That is a good point to bring up is that other places they are more upfront where yeah, the pressure honestly gets put on us, which is even harder because if you're not in the nutrition world, if you're not a dietitian constantly studying food,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like another thing you have to worry about. So I understand why people are getting so frustrated and now they're like, what the heck do I even do now? Everything I do is wrong.
It's like if we were supposed to know this, shouldn't we be taught it in school? So we're
I mean,
not.
it's like taxes.
Right. I'm like, two things we're not taught in school, taxes or nutrition. I'm like, those are two things I feel like most people don't know anything about. Right. And so I think what's frustrating to me is they're just sitting behind the fact that like we're within our regulations, our guidelines to do it. And they're not challenging themselves to really give the consumers what they want or like listen to the consumer. They're just kind of like, we don't have to, so it's fine. And they make so much freaking money. It's ridiculous. They don't care.
Yeah, and like you said, the idea behind it, I mean, for them is that in small amounts that it's deemed safe in studies.
Mhm.
And so I guess in their point of view, it's kind of up to you as the consumer to decide how much you're going to consume. So I
Yeah.
think when we talked about it, we like briefly mentioned artificial dyes or like natural flavors. So we mentioned something along those lines in a previous episode where like we talked about at the beginning, we don't really focus on them necessarily. And that is because when you are eating more whole foods, like your fruits, your vegetables, protein, like getting whole grains in, less processed foods, they're not going to have this in it anyways. So I would
Right.
say naturally I intake less red dye because I don't even remember the last time I bought Fruit Loops. Apple Jacks maybe a couple of years ago, but like right now we do have cereal sitting in our pantry. It's the new Kelsey cereal, but it's been in there for like 3 weeks. Like
Hmm.
it's just not a common thing we have in our house, just products like that. We have worked really hard to just focus really on foods with better ingredients. And that's something that I've kind of slowly transitioned to, not only as it got easier to manage my budget, but also as I gain more knowledge, just deciding what foods I want to include in my house and what not to. And I think that honestly helped the budget because like we don't buy a lot of snack foods, to be honest, because a lot of our snacks they come from like fruits and nuts. Like it's not like we have lots of granola bars or like chips. We'll have like maybe one bag in there at a time.
Yeah.
And so like that part of thing has really helped to be able to buy higher quality foods because those higher quality foods are going to impact us more in that positive way rather than kind of I'd call them like filler foods
Yeah.
where and like Josh cracks me up because again, he's an adult. I'm not gonna micromanage everything he eats. And
Yeah.
so he'll be like gummy worms, chips, and then a bowl of cereal. And he's like, I'm so hungry. I'm like, because all you're eating is carbs. Like it's not doing anything for you.
Yeah. There's not much nutritional value there.
Yes.
So yeah.
So yeah, and when you switch to more nutrient dense, you're getting the benefits, you're getting full and satisfied, so you don't need as much, if that makes sense.
And honestly, I think, and I don't know because I need to look more into it, but I think a lot of the protests right now is kind of the agitation that a lot of their products are used like at school, like in school breakfast,
Yes.
lunch, which yes, cereal is a staple of the food, lunch breakfast program because of its whole grains and whatever their stipulations for like what qualifies for reimbursable is, in my opinion, not fantastic.
Great.
Yeah. And so I know California just did a thing where like they banned these, they banned them in foods that are sold at schools. Every school has to start abiding by it by like 2027 or something crazy like that. They did this with soda before too. And I don't know if this is going to impact the reimbursable lunches or if it's just foods that they sell like in their vending machines or like if you can go and buy food. I don't know. That I need to look more into. But I think that's the big thing for parents is like for some people, it's the only option for their kids to go to school and eat school breakfast. Why is it these options? Which again, we can go down the whole rabbit hole of like why more harmful foods are more affordable. We will not. But
Yes.
I think I don't know. To me, I'm just like, you're already doing it in other countries. People are trying to be more health conscious. You already
Yeah.
said you would do it, then do it. And then the fact that they don't want to meet is like a problem. But I'm excited that people are like going after this like major giant because yeah, why can't there be more whole foods in schools?
Exactly. And
No.
it's so hard because we can go back and forth on so many things in nutrition.
Yeah.
But yeah, at the end of the day, why wouldn't we make it easier on the consumer to feel confident in what they're consuming?
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I guess within this episode, what we want you to take away from this is become informed, follow the science, take in information that's going to be supportive to you, do what works for your family, slowly make transitions because yes, artificial dyes, they have been linked to hyperactivity in children, allergic reactions, leaky gut, autoimmune reactions, and
Mhm.
even just some other potential long-term health risk. And so, yeah, it's not a bad thing to work to decrease, but again, as you do more whole foods, it's going to naturally decrease as well.
Mhm.
So, and then yeah, with that too, like even I would say before we kind of get in the nitty-gritty of the dyes, looking at your added sugars that you're doing, because a lot of these products
Kind of
too
thing.
also
If
have a lot of added sugars. So again,
you
I think
start
that's
to
where,
be, yeah, if you start to be mindful of added sugars, you will cut a lot of this stuff out just
yeah.
automatically. And I think too, like, just going back to like make those small changes, do the best you can. Like for me, my son, he started going to like public school and he like really wanted to do school lunch. Like it's like super
Mhm.
cool like now to get hot lunch. I don't know. It was never cool when I was a kid. Now it's cool. And so I know when he goes there, he's probably getting snack items that have a little bit more added sugar, a little bit more food dyes, things like that. But knowing that that's really might be, it's very small compared to what he could be eating because we don't do certain things like that at home. Like I know that there's parents that are like, I don't want my kid have anything. Like the kid at the birthday party that like can't have the cupcake or the juice because like we don't do that. I'm like, if they're only eating it at a birthday party, we're probably okay, right? It's like those foundational things. Like what
Mhm.
are we working on? More whole foods, less added sugar. And so if you have stuff in a small amount, okay, let's not stress about it too much. But yeah, if there's something like you go look in your pantry and you're like, all my breakfast items, all my snack items, all this every day have a lot of these things in it. Okay, slowly, it isn't, it's really hard to get away from all of it unless you're going to go be Amish. I don't
Yes.
know. Actually, I don't know. Like, do the Amish like shop at stores for snacks? I don't know. But, unless you're making the majority of your own food, it is hard. And so, trying to have better habits. But,
The
and
Amish have really good food, though. I will say that. Their pies are amazing.
delicious. And you know what? There's no artificial dyes
There is not. And
or
the ones
natural
that I
flavor.
get, yeah, there's no dairy in it either.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Well, let's be Amish. No, but yeah. So if you haven't heard of this, and you kind of, I feel like if you're on Instagram or TikTok, you had to have, maybe not.
Mhm.
Maybe it's just my algorithm, but look into it, see. And then this is where I would say, as a consumer, unfortunately, you have to educate yourself, figure out what companies you do feel comfortable with.
Yeah. And I will say another account we do like to follow is Just Ingredients. She does a really good job about like comparing different products, explaining them, and showing you swaps where some accounts I feel like they just bash all of these
Yeah.
products but don't give you the solution. You're like, okay, so I'm
Like,
not,
well, what do I do now?
yeah.
Yeah.
And she will kind of give you swaps. So I think that's a really good account to follow. But yeah, do what
Yeah.
works for you. Be educated.
She does like the normal product, a
Yeah.
better swap, and then a best. So then it
Yeah,
kind of
she does that
helps
too. Uh-huh.
you like, what's my budget? What realistically can I do? Okay, how can I make better choices? And then kind of weigh out, you know, what you do. I like it. It's helpful rather than just like you said, like following Bobby and being like, well, I can't eat anything. It's not
Yeah.
Bobby approved.
Let's not do that. Yes. And
Yeah.
then that's part of it. Like when you work with us, we kind of take we we are your brain almost at that point for those certain things because yeah, we help navigate these pieces for you and help you decide the hard things almost, like what's best for you.
Just help take some of the guesswork out of it because it is overwhelming. I mean, it's overwhelming for us as dietitians that do it all the time. I can't imagine not having any nutrition background and being like, well, what do I do? Especially when all you want to do is make good choices
Yes.
for your family.
Yeah. All right. So that was our short, sweet thoughts on the Kellogg's boycott right now.
Yep.
So there you go.
All
Hope you
right.
enjoyed this episode, and we will be back next week.
All
Bye,
right.
everyone.